Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Sound check. Hello. Mac uh Mac Mac GM. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Not sure if I'm even can be heard. I guess I'll just wait for people to show up. Sound check 1 2 1 2. Mhm. Can you hear me, Mac uh Gem? Okay, Mac GM. Cool. So you can hear me at least. Okay. Yeah, we can start whenever you want to start, and I'm all good. How are you? Got a few people on. Maybe more people will hop on. Maybe more people will not hop on. But we are doing a giveaway. The giveaway name. And we're gonna we're going to announce the winner of the giveaway right now, or on the stream. So give it a few more, a minute or two for people to, if there's anybody that wants to come up, if you got any questions, you can feel free to ask in the chat. And if not, I got a little something something prepared. uh, Maybe I'm a little too relaxed. The picture, I picked a little thumbnail that tried to set the vibe. I'm one of those people who just, chillaxing, relaxing. I like to just, um, you know, have a calm, cool, collective environment. Okay. Hello, Black Bond. How are you? Feel free to ask any question. You know, no pressure though. If you don't want to ask a question, it's all good. I prepare just in case. We can do a little short talk, philosophical talk, and then we can cut out. But first, I do need to announce the winner. But we'll wait for, if there's anybody else, give it a few more minutes. Hello, Dope Llama. Where are you from? Originally, I was born in the city of Oakland in California, United States of America. Where are you from? I mean, and if you don't want to reveal that information, that's cool. Hello, TN. How are you? Okay, well, I know I shouldn't just sit here and relax too much because that'll be a little boring. Okay, you're from Germany. Okay, that's cool. Cool. Got a lot of, I got a nice international uh, audience, in on the YouTube channel. That's cool. Kind of nice to be on the internet. One of the perks of being on the internet. Okay, so Black Bond. I'm reading Being and Nothingness. Ooh, yeah. Eventually, I will feature that on the channel. Uh, it's kind of hard to comprehend his concept. Can you please give us a brief discourse? That will be very helpful. Well, it won't be brief because that is, that's a big boy. Eventually, I do. That was actually one of the books that I had on the shelf before I even started the channel. And that was a huge motivation for me even starting the channel because I was trying to look for YouTube videos that covered being and nothingness, and there was a few, uh, but they didn't. I wanted a channel that did more my style, where they're actually like kind of holding up the book and talking about the book and giving like specifics about the themes. A lot of times the videos about philosophy, they just kind of write down a concept and then they explain the concept, and then the video is just about a little concept or within the book. But I'm like, no, give me an overview of the book. Although I understand like a lot of philosophical texts, that's hard to do, like being in nothingness. That's why I've tended to make more longer videos. So eventually, I will make a video about that um, masterwork, but I can't give you a brief discourse. Sorry about that. But stick to it, and it'll be good. Okay, so if we have there's feel free if you want to ask a question, you can do that. It's not too many people on, and if maybe some people will hop on, maybe some people will not. uh, but before, maybe I'll wait a little bit longer for people to hop on, and I'll give an announcement who won the giveaway. But what I prepared here is, and we're going to be talking about, I already made a video about this book long while back, Soren Kierkegaard's The Sickness Unto Death. And I revisited that book. I tend to do that from time to time, revisit books, reread. That's good to do, especially philosophy, right? You're not going to get everything on your first pass. And it's good to return to books and see if you can get something out of it. Kierkegaard makes a lot of his books are, they're not as long. Either or is pretty big, but many of his other texts are just kind of small. So Kierkegaard's a great starting point if you're into philosophy. But if you're beginning and you want to break into it, but I have some notes here, and I'm going to talk to you, the people that are on here, and people watching maybe later, about a theme that I found in the book, and it has to do with the tough time. So, the sickness unto death. What a title, right? What a that's very inspiring. The sickness unto unto death. But he talked about, but it's a very good philosophical text. Very good philosophical text. It has to deal a lot with coming to terms with the fact that life is hard and it can weigh down on you, and there's a lot of things are going to happen to you that are going to just mess you up mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and that's just part of the human experience. That's just part of the human experience. A lot of times in philosophy, they all people will get caught up into the, like, well, why is it that we have to deal with all this stuff, or like, why do we is there so much suffering, or like so much turmoil. And Kierkegaard really wasn't about that. He was more about, look, that's just how it is. That's like asking, like, a triangle, why does a triangle have three sides? Why? I mean, well, it's just that's what a triangle is by its definition. It just is three sides. If it had more sides, you'd call it something else. Right. So Kierkegaard was all about, like, look, this is just how it is, and we just got to focus on, okay, the condition that we're in. Let's figure out what is the best way to deal with that. And instead of focusing on, well, why is that the case? So I returned back to that because times are hard nowadays. It's very difficult. That you don't need me to tell you that. You got the global uh, novel coronavirus pandemic that's been weighing down on us, and that it's like we thought, a lot of us was thinking, okay, it's gonna go away. Then the Delta variant hit, and then now the Omicron variant, and we still don't know what's it could be all types of stuff, variants. You just we're dealing with this global thing that's really weighing us down, physically, mentally, psychologically, spiritually. On top of that, there's all types of other stuff going on, politics, right? You got to deal with that every time you turn on the news. Social economics going on. I mean, there's just a lot of things in this world, and a lot of people will say, you'll oftentimes, there's this counter argument where it's like, well, life's always been hard, and that's true. If you look back at other times, every time had to deal with it. But I would say, like, yeah, it's particularly hard now. So, what does Kierkegaard have to say about dealing with hard times? Because he's dealt with some hard times, in his life. Right? We all have, but you can't deny that these times are particularly really hard. So let me read you a quote from this book, "Sickness unto Death," and we'll just talk about this for a little bit, or maybe we'll make this the discussion of this video, and then yeah, after I do that, we'll announce the giveaway winner, and if there's no questions, we'll end it there. Right. So let me read you this quote right here. I can't even see where I highlighted it because my lighting. Okay, well, in case you have this edition, we're on page 47. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going to start on the 12th line here. So, just in case you want to go back and reference. So, Kierkegaard says, every moment he doesn't have. Oh, you know what? I'll start here. Go lines, 4 lines up. This is because despair is an aspect of spirit. It has to do with the eternal inner person, but the eternal is something he cannot be rid of, not in all eternity. He cannot rid himself of it once and for all. Nothing is more impossible. Every moment he doesn't have it, he must have cast or be casting it off, but it returns. That is, every moment he despairs, he brings the despair upon himself. For despair is not a result of the imbalance, but of the relation which relates to itself. And the relation to himself is something a human being cannot be rid of, just as little as he can be rid of himself, which for that matter is one and the same thing, since the self is indeed the relation to oneself. So what's going on here? And I I actually wrote, this is some old notes that I wrote in the margins. I wrote egoism is the rejection of the metaphysical and the cause of despair. Okay, let's think about that for a minute. Yeah, he's talking about our relationship with oneself, and the turmoil, that relationship with oneself. Once it gets out of whack, right, starts getting messed up, it will you will begin to confront despair. What's going on there? Okay, let me look at my notes here. So I brought up this word egoism. What is egoism? Ego. We're talking about ego. If we want to get into the full Freud concept, it's the outward projection of oneself. It's not one's true self, right? Rather, it's my projection of me. For example, I get up in the morning, right? But then I'm like, okay, I can't go outside present myself, right? Because I look, I got all, hair messed up. I gotta like wake up, brush my teeth, comb my hair, good, put on a nice shirt, and now you see the representation of me that I want people to see. That's my ego, right? That's part of what the ego is. Uh, okay, so let me consult more of my notes. I put the image of oneself doesn't match up to who we actually are. Okay. the image of myself does not match who I really am, right? And we live in this age of social media, and even like uh I guess YouTube is a social media platform. Even like the framing here. I went to a part of the room where it's not. I'm living in a small apartment where we're about to get this desk, so a lot of things are like out of order. But I'm not going to show you that. I'm a, I, that's out of the frame, right? And we do this a lot in social media. Take a picture, we take our best picture, and it's just not in sync with who we are, right? Hello. My wife just walked in. Uh, And, to further to that point, we look at the world today, we look at society today, and it's not matching our perception of what we think society should be. And whether it's just, downright hardship, struggle, pain, global pandemic. This is not how society is, how it should be. I should have been doing this. But despair oftentimes happens when, our what we think is supposed to be, or who we think we are, doesn't match up with the truth, right? Kierkegaard is letting us know that. I mean, can consult my notes here. Uh, we got, society like social media, and then I put this quote here: in the United States of America, we're dealing with a lot of social injustice issues, and there's this quote. This is not who we are. We were saying a lot of that. When things were getting really rough, and people were saying this is not who we are as Americans. But is it really? But it doesn't match the perception, the outward perception. I'm just using the United States of America as an example. Right? United States of America represents what? Freedom, right? Liberty, the pursuit of happiness. But is that what's going on in the United States of America right now? A lot of people aren't free. you know, a lot of people are not happy, right? There's a lot of injustice, unfairness going on in the United States of America. So it's not matching what we're told it it is, right? And Kierkegaard is like, this is where despair is. The relationship of what we think things are not actually what they are, and that's what despair is, right? And it happens all the time in life, right? Uh, Before we could let me check out some of these notes or some of these chats. Maybe you guys have some comments. What is your relationship? Okay, so I'll answer some of these other questions once I finish this talk right here. Uh, yeah, so America, and I put another example. Or I might not like this one, but I will put it. I put like patriarchy, right? That's starting to crumble because the standards of who we're supposed to be, whether you're what it means to be a man. Well, men do this or this. We're supposed to be tough, but society is weighing us down, and a lot of us are going through a lot of mental turmoil, right? And or even with a lot of people who society has deemed are women or feminine, that is not matching up to who they really are, right? And you're seeing a lot of that breakdown too, and a lot of societal, anxiety, uh, depression, things of that nature, starting because what's happening is, we're currently, I think, we're currently in society. We're coming to a point where, okay, I what society is telling me is supposed to be is not what's actually happening, right? And people are just blowing up. They're like, okay, I'm not who I thought I was. Where I live is not who where what I was told is. The standards of where I live are not matching up with what's actually happening. I thought I was going to be somewhere, and I'm not even close to where I am. What's going on? And people are really getting depressed about it, anxious. And this is a part of his Kierkegaard's sickness unto death. Uh, okay, I'll pause here and we will continue. Let me answer some of these questions. Looking for out of curiosity. So, Sikit Patki, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Out of curiosity, what made you a Christian, especially since you read so much philosophy? That's interesting, right? Because I thought, before I thought, yeah, let me break down that question. Because before I got into philosophy, I thought philosophy was something that people who aren't religious turn to. This is when I was a little kid. I was like, oh, that's what atheists go to. That, philosophy answers the big questions. And, religion already answers that. So and also I thought like, if I start reading philosophical texts, that's going to take me away from my religious beliefs because it's going to give me answers that, that are already given to me by my religion, and it'll lead me astray. But, I used to think that, and I think a lot of people think that about philosophy. Uh, but that's like not the truth at all, right? Know, there's many great philosophers who are atheists, and they use their atheism to, you know, as the basis of their philosophy, like Jean-Paul Sartre, who is a great philosopher, right? And atheism is kind of kind of the key, uh, the foundations of what he's talking about, and that's cool. But some of the greatest philosophers are Christians, right? Like Soren Kierkegaard, right? And you know, he philosophically breaks down a lot of Christian stories, right? Which even a lot of the atheists philosophers base their philosophy off of the Christian or philosophy based off of religions like Christianity, Christian philosophy, and other things like that. Uh, so that's the first thing, and so the other thing, what made me a Christian? Oh, well, I was first of all, I was raised a Christian. Mama brought me up in the church. But really, what kept me uh, into the Christian faith was Jesus, the teachings of Jesus. I'm one of those people who were like, "Oh, I love Jesus." I just fell in love with what the he was saying. You know, and that's just the honesty. That's basically how I would describe it. It's like I just fell in love with what was being said on the page, and I'm like, wow, this is the type of person I want to follow. You know, and I would also say, like, a lot of people don't have the luxury or the privilege to be raised in a church that's, encouraging, um, fostering love and community. I was fortunate enough because a lot of churches are very bad and they're pretty cruel and they, abusive, manipulative, exploitative. That sucks. I was blessed, fortunate. And I came from a church, so that helped a lot, right? That helped a lot because a lot of people they go get a they fall out of the church because the church is abusing them, right? So that sucks. Uh, but yeah, I fell in love with what Jesus Christ said, and his radical love, loving his enemy. You should love your enemy. What if somebody beats you up? Well, just turn the other cheek. Accept I just was like, wow, this is a God is saying this. Uh, yeah, it just was. That kind of forgiveness is like something that's is not about it's about you as much as it is about the other person. You're releasing, you're breaking from the cycle of like torment, and when you forgive, you're actually breaking free from the prison of the despair and the depression that the hurt caused you. That kind of stuff that he said. I'm just like, wow, I really like that. So that's what kept me. Okay, so scrolling up. What's your view on relationship between hope and despair? Black Bond is asking. So again, we're going returning back. What's your relationship between hope and despair? Well, what I was talking about with Kierkegaard, he was saying, like, a lot of people focus on, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is the world such a bad place? Things. But Kierkegaard was like, look, that's just how it is. So rather than asking why, we should just start doing something about it. Or like, because it's just the nature of what it means to be a human being. It's a part of the human experience is the despair. So, but he didn't say don't just accept it or just be like, okay, well, we're just in despair. That's that. No, do something about it. Right. I was actually listening to an interview on the radio with I think her name is Jane Goodall. She just came out with a book about hope. Right. Jane Goodall is like that. The scientist who studied. Oh, my wife told me she's a primatologist. That's what she is. You may know her. She's pretty popular. I think they made a movie about her. It's Sigourney Weaver, I think, played her. Right, I believe she's the one. Uh, yeah, she talked about hope as like, look, hope is all we got. It's not about, it's not about like, we should just cling on to hope because evil always, hope good always wins over evil, or like this fairy tale notion of, oh, you should just hope. She's like, look, if we don't hope, then there's nothing else. Then there is despair. So you have to hope, right? And then she further talks about how, if you think about all the things that have happened in the world, how did humanity get out of like these dark times? Through hope. Like it's a process. Like it's a way of not defeating despair, because despair is always going to be there. I mean, it's just part of the human condition, but it's a way of, I guess you could say defeat, or confronting, or even dealing with the reality of despair, right? Because I was saying before, like we're living in some tough times. How do we move forward? The only way is to hope, right? And then she talks about how hope is not just a feeling, it's like an action. So you have, okay, I can see the end of the tunnel, because one of the examples she uses climate change, right? Like the thing about climate change is that we know how to solve that problem. A lot of problems we already know how to solve, right? They're huge problems, but we know how to solve. We just have to have the will to move forward, right? And also, the, you might say like, well, and with climate change, you're dealing with giant mega corporations that have extreme amounts of power, like the oil industry is like, I can't, who am I to do something about it? So what she says is you just got to start local, grassroots, right? And once you start doing grassroots movements, don't get caught up in the big picture. Focus on the local and the grassroots, and then it's gonna build, right? It's like a chain reaction. So that's the relationship between hope and despair. I would encourage you check it, look that up. Jane Goodall's newest book, because she talks a lot about that. Let's see if there's any more questions in the chat. I think we were trying this, or I'll just read what people are saying. Do we have a lot? Yeah. Uh, McGM says, I think we are trying to show who we want to be on social media and trying to force ourselves in paths that are not the right one for ourselves. hmm Yeah, it's true. And I think there's a standard that society wants us, brings us conditions us to live up to, but nobody meets that standard. Even the people that we think meet that standard, right? Like, people who look like a Barbie doll, Kim Kardashian, for instance. So even they don't meet that kind of standard, right? But so we're constantly trying to meet up to these impossible constructs, these social constructs, right? And it's leading us to despair, right? Because we're living these false, we're aspiring toward these notions of how we should be that aren't really who we really are. It's a disconnect, as Kierkegaard was saying, like I was saying before. Culture, okay, we got in person in the chat, not Libre Vox audiobooks. Okay, culture has went downhill drastically since 2012, 2013. Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean? It's getting worse though. Media is patronizing everybody. Disaster capitalism and political censorship and consumerism. Fair Earth theory. Okay, myths and religion help people explain, accept, and understand or describe things otherwise very hard. Okay, I mean those are good points. Those are good points. Uh, so I would say to, I don't know if culture has gone downhill drastically since 2012. I don't know, that marker. I don't think maybe culture isn't the issue, but maybe, I don't know. And then it's getting worse through media, disaster, capitalism, political censorship, consumerism. Okay, okay, a myth. Well, and that is true. Like, for myths and religions are ways for people to a lot of people use those as ways to explain very difficult things that we have to deal with. But I would argue, and I guess that is a way we can use religion. But I would say like the best way to use religion is not so much explaining like why, but more like just dealing with the issue. Like, dealing with the problem. It's a way to, because a lot of things that happen, it's like we have no answers, right? And then I don't think there's a problem with like using a belief system to help you deal with the stuff. Like, we a lot of times people will say like science versus religion, but I would say like those two enterprises, religion, science, they cover two different domains. uh but and religious people get this wrong too, right? They're the ones that they like, well, science is like explaining things religious explains, and it's like, and I'm about like, oh no, that's not what's going on. Right? Religion is fills in the gaps that science has. Right? Which is like science explains to you like, the it, it explains to you like the what reality is, like, okay, we're a collection of atoms, the processes of reality. But then religion is like, okay, how do these processes affect us, or how can we use these processes to create meaning in this world, or is there meaning? Like science, some scientists will say like, well, I find meaning in cosmology, which is that's cool, that's great. uh, but so a lot of people need more. Right? They need more, like, okay, where do I fit in all this? So like, you know why, you know I'm experiencing all these things in my life, and there's so much happening. How do I relate to the world, and what is my place at all? This is where religion comes in. Up until recently, most philosophers were Christian. Well, this is not myself, not me saying that. In the West, that is exactly, exactly. I was going to say that. Like, well, if we only think about like quote unquote Western civilization, uh, sure, but even then, I don't know. But there's a ton of philosophers who are like into all types of religions way before even Western civilization was a thing, a quote unquote thing. So let's see here. Right, right. So not all LibriVox audiobook says uh my favorite Jesus thing is throw first stone and golden rule. Well, I was just so yeah, throw he who casts uh I forgot how it went. He who casts judgment, or he without sin cast the first stone. Right? Yeah, right. Yeah, something along those lines. But we've all we all do wrong, all of us, right? So it's like, okay, who are you? Like people are judging each other left and right. It's like, well, who are you to judge? Jesus said that, but then who are the ones judge doing the most kinds of judgments on people? Christians, right? It's like it's so hypocritical. It's like you don't even listen to your Messiah, your teacher. No, I agree. That that kind of language that Jesus was like, he would walk the earth and he'd see people. It's like, who are you to judge? Right? Core tenet of Christianity. Right, right. And I'll just let you know, not on LibriVox audiobooks. He's just dropping this person's dropping dimes and just let you know. The church helps the poor. Jesus was all about helping the poor, helping the needy. He talked about that. But as you said, there's a huge amount of problems with exploitation and abuse too with the church. You know. Now, not all churches do that. I'm always encouraged to see like there's a church a block away from me and it does food drives every week. That's like a Christian uh, obligation. Like Jesus taught that. It's like, help the poor. Right. So, churches that do food banks, that's great. You're following the teachings of Christ. Mhm. Yeah, what's going on here? Has been explained through our hopes. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Let's do some other questions here. Lung Lungguan. Okay, so I don't know if you're on Lungguan, if you're still on, but I'll make the announcement now. You're the person that won the giveaway. Lung Lungwan, you're the one that won the giveaway. So, we did a random draw and I randomly selected with the computer algorithm and your name just popped up. So, congratulations, Lungwan, you've won. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So, if you want to, I don't know if you can private message people on YouTube anymore. I think they might have taken that away. But if you want to send me your mailing address via email, you go to my About tab and it's like view business, email business inquiry box. You click on that, it'll be email. You can send me that. Or you can hit me up on my other social medias, Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram, and you won. And you're going to be getting this book mailed to you, Frederick Nietzsche's autobiography. There it is. Congrats. But you put, hi, I love your videos. Thank you. Do you ever find that you over philosophize? Probably. But let me see. As the Taoist ideas go, do you have to step back and try to stop thinking? If so, how? I definitely need to. I don't find that, but I probably go on. I probably overthink things, probably, but I don't really confront that as an issue. I wish people use philosophy more. Really, I think that's a problem. Like we're so far away from. It's like I wish more people were philosophers, like at least thought philosophically about things. Right? So I actually don't find that as a problem. Hmm. Right, right. The Taoists did believe that. Uh, Lung Wan talks about the idea that the greater picture can never be fully grasped. The ultimate reality. I think you know almost all religions. I'm just thinking about Western religions too. They also say like, well, the ultimate reality, the true nature of existence is beyond our comprehension. Right. So to try and think about it and try to make sense of it, it's kind of outside your purview. And that's what Kierkegaard's going. I think he's along those lines of, be careful not to get caught up in like, why is this happening to me? Or like, why is the world dealing with so much problems and issues? uh that's kind of like outside your comprehension. So what you need to focus on is, okay, now that we're in this mess, how's the best way to navigate through it? That's what you need to put all your attention, your philosophical analysis into that, because trying to understand why, that's like you're not going to go anywhere, because that's outside your ability of comprehension. So okay, what's going on? Call it, yep, this author I need before. Okay. So Black Bond asks, "What is the nature of meaning? Why do we are so gravitated towards it?" So you ask, "What's the nature of meaning?" I guess that's what is the epistemology, right? I guess that's like the philosophy of knowledge, epistemology. So you might want to go into that. What is the nature of meaning? That's an enormous question, right? First of all, first we gotta understand, like, so what is meaning, right? And why are we so drawn to meaning? Because that's the nature of the human animal, right? Human beings, we want to know what's the meaning behind what we're dealing with. It's just like kind of who we are, kind of who we are. It's kind of like dogs that like sniff all the time. They just like sniffing it because they got that that nose, that the sense of smell is so prominent. They just got to sniff everything. That's just their nature. That's our nature. We just into meaning. What is the nature of meaning, man? That's a hard question. I know a lot of philosophers have written books about it. I don't know. I can't answer that question. Hmm. Okay, let's see if there are any more questions here. Let's see. There is one universal hypocrisy. Mhm. I'm just looking for questions. Okay. Whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, uh, Lung Wan busted out with the Keanu Reeves. Whoa. Congratulations. Okay, okay. What is the So here's the question. What is the only one thing not subject to change and transformation? That question is asked. What is the only thing not subject to change and transformation? Uh, that's a good question. And I mean, it depends on your philosophical standpoint, right? Because many people will say that, well, everything changes, right? That's just all things change. Like change, reality is change itself. Like, you'd ask, like, what's the meaning? What's the nature of meaning? The nature of meaning for many people, or many philosophers even, is change. That's the only constant. Right, is change. So it depends. But then there's other people who are like, change is an illusion. Nothing actually changes. We think things change, but things all just stay the same. Right. In fact, like the ultimate reality is like this oneness, the sameness. So there is no change. So it really does depend on your philosophical standpoint. I could give my answer, but I don't know if that's like the answer that's going to apply to everybody. Right? So it depends on what you think. It's very important to kind of come up with your own ideas. And, I can give you my ideas, but what do you think? Mhm. And then, so what is the only thing that does not undergo transformation or change? Well, a lot of people, a lot of the great religions will say God is that. God does not change or go through transformation. Uh, but then, other religions will be like, well, God changes all the time. In fact, God is change. I think that's the great no, the science fiction writer Octavia Butler. She's her one of her famous quotes is that God is change. So and then so if God has changed, then nothing, then everything changes. There's nothing that does not change, right? Let's see. Look, you're going through the chat, looking for any questions. If you don't know the answer, I can tell you. There's one thing. Okay, he's so not on LibriVox audiobooks. This is the username. Says if you don't know the answer, I can tell you. Okay. There's one thing which is subject to not change or diminishing or this. You got it pretty much. I'll give it to you. The answer is the universe, the entire universe itself as a whole remains that. Okay. I mean that's what you think. All right. So you think the universe, the entire universe, the whole entirety of the universe does not change. Well, there's a lot of cosmologists or quantum physicists who would disagree with you. So you might, want to like check out their works. Because they would say like, well, no, actually, the universe changes all the time, and the universe is always in flux. It's like constantly changing. So it just, but maybe and I'm not saying you're wrong. That's just maybe how you feel. Okay, so Lunwan, I know you're a runner. Yeah, I am a runner. That's one of my hobbies. I do a bit too, although not marathons yet. I find it very. Do you have any philosophies for your relationship to running? What got you started? Okay. Uh, I find it very. Do I have philosophies related to running? Not really. I like a run. Do I have like a philosophical take on running? Not really. I do find running meditative, and that's why I do it. Do you have any philosophy? Okay, what got you started? Well, my wife got me back into running. She's a running coach. I used to run in high school for a little bit. I joined the cross country team because I was a really skinny kid, pretty. I don't know if I was scrawny. I was like very lean, skinny, and uh, I was tall, and I was very bad at basketball. Very bad at dribbling the ball, even shooting them down. So I'm like, I'll try this cross country. There was a cross country team, but barely anybody was interested in cross country, which is long distance running. It was me and like two other people in high school. We did cross country, and that was the first time I started long distance running, and it was fun. We did the practicing, we ran long distances, and then we went to the tournaments and the regional, like the local tournaments. That where I'm from, running is not. The community I was raised in, I was brought up in, running is not popular. It's like basketball, baseball, football. Those are the only sports that matter. Anything else, because I'm from the hood, the street. You know, just to be honest with you. So a lot of people didn't put much focus on running. Uh, so we would show up to these running tournaments, and we'd be the only ones there. And with other schools, they didn't have any runners. They didn't have a team. So the coach was like, "Okay, just like complete the run, and you win." And we're like, "Cool." So I'm from East Oakland City in California in the '90s where I grew up. Was pretty hood. It was pretty good. Not so much anymore, but it was pretty hood back then. And so a lot of the schools, and Oakland has a lot of schools. Uh, so we would compete against all these schools. They didn't have any teams. They only had basketball, football, baseball teams, and they had a soccer team. So soccer was pretty big because soccer is pretty big in our football, which is what everybody else besides America calls soccer. Um, uh, Soccer was pretty big amongst the Latinx community, which was huge where I'm from. Uh, but eventually we went to the regionals. This is where we went to the regionals where we started going outside of Oakland, outside the hood, and we started going to the rich kid schools. That's when we got smoked, right? Because these kids, they had like the running shoes, they had the running gear, they had the food, that the little tablets you eat to stay keep you energized. I mean, I didn't wasn't even wearing any of that. Now the coach that we had, he was actually the coach for the basketball coach too. So he didn't really care too much about running, and he didn't really tell us like there's special shoes you buy for running, and there's special, you get the different clothes. You're not supposed to wear cotton, right? Because it will sweat and get you cold. You got to wear certain types of clothing and light clothes. And we just wasn't, so we just got smoked, man. And I remember and then once we got smoked, I talked to these rich kids who was like really. I mean, these are the people they were preparing for like professional marathons. These people they had aspirations of going to the Olympics and professionally running long marathon distances and they're like, man, I get up. They were telling me that I get up at 4 in the morning and I train, and I'm like, whoa, dude, I'm not into it like that. So I quit. I kind of quit. Uh, and I just didn't get into it for the longest time. But eventually, I met my wife, who's a running coach, and she started taking me to running events. And I decided, I'll get back into it. I'll get back into it. And, I discovered my love for running, but I do it casually. You know, I'm not trying to, break any records. I just, I do it at my own pace. It's a hobby, it's an enjoyment, and it's fun. That's how I got in. That's why I got back into running. I am actually give you some insight. I have another person who's a close person to me. She invited me to do an ultra marathon, 50 miles, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. No pressure though. If I can't do it, I can't do it. So I'm training for a 50-mile run on the trails, and so far so good. We're not, no pressure. If I'm running like 30 something miles and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this, I'll quit. No pressure. It's casual, but we'll see. I think I probably can be able to do it if I just do it casually and just do it just for the fun of it and the joy of it. It'll be good. But it is quite meditative. Okay, so there's some answers to your questions. Seki Patki asks, if you had to pick one, who is your favorite philosopher? Oh well, my favorite philosopher is Judith Butler. Now, they wouldn't classify themselves as a philosopher. I think they famously said, and they're currently alive. They're a professor who teaches at the University of California, Berkeley. I have one regret in my life. uh, I attended University of California, Berkeley, but I didn't realize Judith Butler taught there, and I actually did not like Berkeley. I actually hated the school. I'm not saying it's a bad school. I'm just saying it's it's bad school for me. I didn't like it. So I quit. I basically dropped out and went to I attended another college where all my friends were going, and it was I had a good time. Uh, but if I knew Professor Butler was teaching at Berkeley, I definitely would have stayed. And I would have changed my major because I was studying computer science. I would have immediately said, "Oh, I'm studying philosophy," or what they teach is uh, comparative uh, literature. She let me think. Comparative literature. I think it's it's not. Uh, sh- they do philosophy. Professor Butler does philosophy, but I think they said, "Oh, look, I'm a critical theorist. That's what I am. I wouldn't consider myself a philosophy. That's what they say. I don't know. I think Professor Butler got some really cool philosophy that blew my mind. That's my favorite philosopher. Uh, okay, okay. Let's look at some more. If there's any more question, which one had the most impact on you? Yeah, it would be Professor Butler. Uh, I, I that their famous book is Gender Trouble. I encourage you to read it. I have a video on it, and it blew my mind. So you know, although I was raised in the hood, mostly community of Black African Americans, right? Other many different people of color as well. But despite that, we got a lot of conservative views. Where I'm from. One of them is like gender, very conservative. Like definitely, there's a certain way to be. When you're a man, you do this, 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 and this. When you're a woman, you do this, 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 and this. And that is just nature, right? That is just the law of, like, that's just the science. Right? And so I was like hardcore into that type of thinking. It's so much so I didn't even like, it wasn't even an issue of getting angry or getting upset when people presented alternatives. I was just like, that y- a man does this, a woman does this. I don't know why you're doing these alternatives. It doesn't make any sense. So I remember somebody gave me Gender Trouble, the book, and they're like, gender is a social construct, and it's performance. It's a performance. And I'm like, no, no, it's gender is nature. It's the same thing as sex, right? The word sex, male, is biological. I was just so ingrained in that. And they're like, no, no, just read this book. I'm like, all right, we'll see about that. We'll see. I was like, okay. And I had my arms crossed, and I was expecting not to be convinced. I read that book, and I was like, oh shit. she's she's right. The person that gave me that book, she's right, and Professor Butler is right. It's like in the Matrix where you get the, what is it, the blue pill or the red pill. You get the one that opens up your mind, and you're like, whoa. There's a such thing as social constructs, and like everything isn't set in stone, and you know things can be constructed in these ways that we think they're just natural, when in reality they're not. They're just fiction that we think is the natural law. you know and the idea of performance, or the performative, that not like performance as theater, but as acting out. And like social media, where we present this image of ourselves, and that image becomes a reality, an actual reality. But the problem is that reality is disconnected with the truth of who we really are. There's a disconnect, there's a dissonance, which is what Kierkegaard's talking about. And that gives us despair. And Professor Butler makes that same comparison with, but she uses gender as the, as her tool to express that same concept of, like, we're told this based off of what society says who we are in terms of our gender, but it doesn't align with who we really are. And so we're caught into this despair, right? And yeah, it just blew my mind. So yeah, that philosopher, and I consider Butler a philosopher. m- definitely most influential for me, most impact. Or okay, so let me look. Any more questions? Philosophy is or should be. It is a longer. So I would disagree with you on this. Not on LibriVox audiobooks. Philosophy should be a religious or secular. No, no, it should. It could be religious, or it could definitely be secular, or it could be. I think philosophy is a great tool to critically think about religion. I think all religious people should look at their religion in a philosophical way. I think if we did that, if a lot more religious people did that, a lot of this corruption, exploitation, abuse, just evil immorality within the church would be, a lot of that would go away, right? If we actually start thinking about uh, religion more philosophically. I would argue like Jesus Christ, he was a philosopher, certainly, right? And I would think Jesus would say like, look, you got to think about this philosophically, right? So I don't know. I would disagree with that. Oscar, good luck on your ultra marathon. Thanks. I appreciate the luck. And again, but thank you for the good luck. If I don't finish, that's not the issue. Or if I don't, the journey, I'm all about journey rather than destination. you know. So I'm just saying for the experience of preparation. And if we go up to the ultra marathon, and I'll just do how far I can do. I might finish the ultra marathon. I'll be like, I'm right. I'm ready for that 100 mile. I doubt it, or I might be like, oof, mile 35. Think I'm done. That's totally cool too. It depends. But thanks for the good luck. Human nature, if it is, sense with, so should be. Okay, okay. Just looking and seeing if there's any more questions. So Chris PR88. Will this video be up to watch after the live ends? Yes, it will be up. So, no worries. And, if you got any questions, if you're late, that's fine. It does, this ain't like class where it's like, be on time. I'll never forget. I had a college professor, art history professor. He was really a jerk about being on time. And I understand, like, it's important to be on time for things. But this was a class that was 7 o'clock in the morning. And when people would come in late sometimes, and he would just stop the class, be like, I find it disrespectful, and it's rude that you're late, and I don't like it, and if you do it more, you're gonna be dismissed from this class. And then what happens, right? What happens? He comes into class like late. He comes in. He himself comes late. It was so funny. And it was so funny because the class was very mature about it. We didn't give him shit for it. We were just sitting there, What's your excuse? See, he was like, "Man, are the clocks backwards? I don't. The clock didn't tell." Like, you were talking to you. I mean, he really went off one time. He was like, "There's no excuse to be late. I was raised on a farm where we had to get up and work 2 hours before breakfast." And everybody else hasn't can get up on time. You should too. And then he comes in late. It was so embarrassing. It was so funny. Oh man, well yeah, that was the thing. So I'm not a stickler for lateness, but it's good. It's good to be on time for things. But this is casual stream. Black Ponder, we laid back. We don't care. We don't care. And just looking at the chat. Uh, Seeing if there's any questions, calling things by right. Okay, okay. Philosophy is talking about human nature and phenomena and is sans myth or should be. But I hate to use that word. I mean, it's that. It is about human nature. It's about phenomena. It's about more. It's about a lot of stuff. Philosophy is like all encompassing. It's hard to define what philosophy is. A lot of people mistake philosophy for the word ideology. Philosophy, ideology, saying they're not it's two different things. Philosophy, ideology are not the same thing. Okay. Let's see. But you can. Okay. So Wang says. Okay. Hello. Q. Q. I don't know how to parse your your use. QKR anarchist. Okay, so we're into hour. We've announced the winner. If you missed it, is Lung Wan has won. Quaker anarchist. Okay, okay, cool. And I will. Okay, so we're in the hour. I'll go a little further see if there's any more questions, but I will continue my talk here. We were, to buffer the chat and to give people opportunity to ask questions. We were talking about this book. I've already made a video about it, but I was, rereading it and talking about issues that I thought were kind of prevalent to our time. This is Soren Kierkegaard's The Sickness Unto Death. And we were talking about how there's a dissonance, a disconnect between, uh, you know, the truth, how we truly are, and what reality truly is, and what we think reality or our expectation of reality, society, who we are. Right? There's this disconnect, and that leads us to despair. Right? So let me read you this other quote from Kierkegaard's work here. Oops, dropped the book. Sorry. I can't even see my highlight because the yellow highlights matching. I think I see it. Is matching the light. I think I see it. Okay, so I'm gonna read you this. This is page 52. This is the last paragraph. In case you have this book, this is the section B, the generality of this sickness, despair. And this is the third paragraph. I'll read you this. Let's see what we can learn from this. The common view of despair, however, goes no further than the appearances, and it is therefore a superficial view that is no view. It assumes that every man knows best himself whether or not he is in despair. So what so that whoever says he is in despair is assumed to be so. But also whoever thinks he is not is assumed not to be. As a result, despair becomes a rather rare phenomenon instead of being quite common. Ooh. What is rare is not that someone should be in despair. No. What is rare, the great rarity, is that one should truly not be in despair. hmm and I put my notes in the margin. Despair is an indicator of the struggle of spiritual awareness. Okay. Therefore, despair is a necessary human struggle. Okay. So I got more notes. So, what is despair? Despair, and Kierkegaard talks about despair as a generality, you know, a generality of what? The human condition. It's part of the human condition is despair. We like to think like, oh, this it's a problem. We're in despair. Like this is an issue. Why am I in despair? I should not be in despair. I shouldn't be sad. And I'm going beyond sadness. I'm talking about profound sadness. Like, why am I dealing suffering in this way? what does it mean? That kind of that's despair, right? But Kierkegaard is saying like, don't get caught up into the why. Rather, acknowledge it as part of the human experience because that's what it is. Why? Because the human experience itself is a struggle, is a confrontation, is a discovery of truth, right? And that discovery is a confrontation between who you really are and you know what you're expected, how you're expected to be, or what you think you should be, and the reality of who you are, right? It's a struggle, and so that struggle in and of itself causes a despair. Okay, but so through that struggle, you discover spirituality. Now I know, and I put that in my notes. Now a lot of people they'll say like, "Well, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not into spirituality." I saw, okay, maybe we shouldn't use that word spirituality. Instead, we should use that word, or we should say um, like understanding your place in the world. Understanding your place in the world. Who you are as an individual and how you fit in uh, the reality, right? I would even not even use the word how you fit in the world, like how you fit because it's beyond the world. It's like how you fit in existence, right? Uh, right. So that in and of itself is a struggle, right? That discovery of truth, which I would say is spiritual undertaking. Uh, because you really are it's a discovery, it's ecological, and I say this a lot in my videos, where reality is ultimate reality is ecology, right? It's an interdependence. Like really we have this illusion that we're independent, like, oh, the things that I'm doing and that I have achieved, or the things that have happened to me, I'm doing it because of my own individual effort. Right? And of course your own individual effort plays a part, but I would say like more so it's the what's going on elsewhere. It's other people, other and not only just other people. It's like objects, it's the air you breathe, it's the environment you live in, is like other animals, other living creatures, viruses, coronavirus. It's a lot of things that are affecting you, right? It's an ecology. Why are you where you're at? It has a lot to do with every everything else besides you, right? So, what is your place in that? That's the struggle that you have to embark on. And some people will be like, well, they'll be like, well, I'm not even going to worry about that, and that's their journey. It's like where you talk about absurdism or something like that, where it's like life is just crazy, and to try and make sense of it is an absurd undertaking in and of itself. But and that's a journey too. But then that has its own philosophical uh, journeying as well. People like Camus, who talked about. Even he was like, even he wrote books about absurdism and that take. So even that has its own quest. Okay. Okay, so let me go back to the chat and see if there's any more questions. Have you joined a conversation with James Fentloy? No, on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I feel like I beard him referencing you. I heard him referencing you. Okay, I don't even know who that is. James Filtroy. Nope, I never even heard the person. But that's cool. Some people reference me. That's fine with me. What made you interested in philosophy? I guess I always was, but I think really what made me interested in philosophy as a little kid was watching those deeply philosophical old school anime. That's really what got me into philosophy. That I remember watching when I was a little kid. I was watching all those animes I shouldn't be watching because they're like lots of violence and nudity, like Ghost in the Shell, which is like the movie, the animated film, not the TV show. Even though the TV series has a little bit of philosophy, but that movie, both of those films, Ghost in the Shell one and two, yeah, they're like deeply philosophical and they're kind of like mind fucks in a way. So that Akira was another movie that I thought had a lot of philosophy in it that kind of like blew my mind. And of course, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like I saw those anime those are my favorite kinds of works of fiction. Is those like mind fuck type of works of fictions where their goal is to just turn your perception or what you think it's real just upside down and be like, well, actually, yeah. I think that really got me into philosophy because they a lot of those films based in works of fiction base their ideas off of philosophers. So it got me researching like where did these ideas come from? Oh, they come from Camus or Sartre or Confucian, Confucius, even or Sun Tzu for the art of war. It got me researching that kind of stuff. So that is so that's a question answer. Uh, okay. Quaker anarchism talks about Quakerism is also about spiritual struggle to make breakthroughs on growth to live more aligned with our five principles. Okay. Cool. Cool. Quakerism. Okay, do I have one more thing I want to say about this to end it, to bring it on home? Cool. Okay, let me bring this home. This discussion that we're talking about Soren Kierkegaard's The Sickness Unto Death. So what does it all mean? Uh, oh man, this light. I'm so I'm looking at my book, and this is all. I made this video like on this book years ago because we're celebrating our 8th anniversary, and so I highlighted the book, but the highlight has faded. So I'm referencing these highlights, and I can barely see the highlight. That's funny. So old. That's what I've been doing this for a while. Okay, I think I see the highlight. I'm gonna read you this last quote from the book. This is page 115. I don't know what. Oh, we're in part two. I'm trying to, if you want to check chapter one, okay, page 115. If you have the Penguin Classics edition, and we're at the top of the page here. And he says the opposite of sin is faith. Wow, and it's in italics. Uh-huh. Opposite of sin is faith, not good. Opposite, the sin is the traditional understanding of sin is evil, and so the opposite of evil is good. But that's not what Kierkegaard said. Kierkegaard says the opposite of sin is faith, which is why in Romans chapter 14, verse 23, it says, "Whosoever is not of faith is sin." And this is one of the most crucial definitions for the whole of Christianity, that the opposite of sin is not virtue, but faith. The opposite of sin is not virtue, but faith. Oh, that's interesting. I forgot about that. I'm pretty sure I said that in my video, but I forgot about that. And I will consult my additional notes. I said here to have faith is truth. Okay, what do I mean by that? Who we truly are and the true reality. Okay. And then I put disbelief in truth is sin. Oh, I see. Yes. Okay, so why did I make this connection between faith being truth? Oh, I'm starting to bring it's coming back to me because uh when we are in and when we enter the world, right, we are not presented, we don't confront our true selves. We have to discover it, we have to find it, we have to discover we're well oftentimes when we enter the world and we brought up into the world, we're presented with lies. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? You never it's rarely the case that, when you're confronted with reality for the first time with things, and then you have to break them down. Right? You have to be like, well, that's not what's going on here. That's not the case. Whether it's like you watching television, the news, movie, your perception of things, like for example, with religion, when we're talking about Christianity, when I was presented it as a child, was is not my understanding of Christianity today is like vastly different from my understanding of Christianity when I was a child, and I would say more true, it's more true. uh, and so disbelief in it, so when you're presented with that truth, right, when you're presented with the truth, when it's like, okay, wait a minute, this church, we're just using the church for as an example, the church is doing these evil corrupt things. No, 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 no. And then, a common reaction to that is, no, 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 I believe in the church. Well, now you're believing in disbelief, or not, you're believing in falsehood is what I mean. Because you have to confront the reality of, oh, snap, this entire institution that I believed in is doing these very bad things. So how do I reconcile? What do I make from this? Do you just turn the blinders on and be like, oh, okay, well, it is what it is. Well, now, or do you have faith in accepting the truth? Like, okay, this church is really this doing some really fucked up stuff. Now, at that point of despair, are you going to have faith in finding the truth? Like, okay, what's going to happen? Am I going to have to turn away from church, or what? Or is the church telling me something uh, that was not true to begin with, that wasn't Christian to begin with? What really does Jesus Christ say, or what do these mean? And then you go to and again, and we're using Christianity as an example. You pick up the Bible, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, this is the King James version. How many versions of the Bible there are? Wow, is that many? How did it become that many? Oh, some of the parts of the Bible have been re-edited and cut out. Why? What's going on here? you know, there's some censorship, some curation going on, right? What's going on? Am I truly a Christian? It's like you gotta have faith. You gotta keep moving forward. Don't be though. You gotta have faith that you'll find the truth, and don't be afraid. That's what Kierkegaard's talking about. The faith, and or like when we talk about gender with Judith Butler, my favorite philosopher, and you were confronted with, okay, society is telling me because I have been told that I'm a woman, or let's see, I've been told that I'm a man, right? I should be doing this. But I know deep down inside, I'm not this. Right? Okay, so what's going on here? Am I wrong? Because I know it's true of myself. And then society say like, well, you're wrong. Well, hold on a minute. Am I really wrong? Okay, at that point, now you're confronted with despair, right? Because there's a dissonance. And so Kierkegaard is like, you got to have faith to do that discovery. Kierkegaard would say like, well, don't let society, like, do the research yourself, like get into it. Do the struggle. Be like, okay, you really do you feel these things, or you have these inherent innate emotions, physicalities about yourself, emotional predispositions. What's going on there? Like, what's really going on there? Are you just gonna like, well, society says this, yeah, but let's put aside what society says. What's really going on here? So you got to start researching outside the mainstream, and you might get scared. You might be like, wait a minute, I don't want to go there because I might confront. What will you confront? You'll confront the truth, right? So you have to have faith in the truth. You have to have faith in the truth. This is what philosophy is about: the pursuit of the truth. Despite the negativity, and everybody's telling you like, well, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. You, uh, what you're figuring out is directly opposed to the structures presented to you, but you do want to go there. And so Kierkegaard is saying like, okay, you're going to go be confronted with this despair, this dissonance, but you got to have faith that you'll get past it if you pursue the truth. The truth will set you free, but you got to deal with despair. You got to deal with a lot of angst, right? So when and I wrote down these notes, uh, like I put like patriarchal lies, or another example is climate change denial, right? Or it's like people are literally saying like, well, climate change, that's not real, or like this not as human. Um, Human cause is not significantly contributing to climate change, which is like not true. That's the science is telling us otherwise. Or even people who are saying like, well, the coronavirus is a hoax, is not that bad. We don't need to wear masks. Vaccinations are actually hurting your body, that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I need to confront the truth, right? But if you do that, you might get ostracized by your tribe, your community. Uh, but you have to have faith in the truth, right? Because the truth will set you free. Whereas if you like are comfortable living the lie and staying in your tribe or like in your community, sure, you'll have that like superficial comfort, but you'll always be in this despair, right? This dissonance. Whereas if you pursue the truth, uh, the despair will be, dispelled, right? Right, and then you'll have to confront some new, some other truths, right? But yeah, the because that happened with me with the church, right? Now, unfortunately, I was raised in a great church, but just the institution of Christianity itself was saying all these things, and I'm like, well, I don't know about that. That's kind of evil, actually. So, am I a Christian? So I'm like, okay, let me go back to what Jesus said. Well, no, Jesus said these all these things, and the church is saying these things that don't go directly against what Jesus is saying, or looking at the Bible and say like, well, as you can see, and I made a video about this. One of my favorite books, "Why Religion" by I guess a religious historian, Elaine Pagels. I'm actually looking at the book right now, where she goes into detail about, well, actually, the Bible is heavily curated, right, and heavily censored, and a lot of stuff was taken in and taken out. And why? Because a lot of that was done to sustain social economic power structures, right? That's what it really went down to. So, are you really following Christianity, or are you following like power structure? The social economic power structures that were done like hundreds of years ago. Uh, and so once I confronted that truth, it's like, oh, okay. So what's happening is like I'm not. It's not that I am no longer a Christian. It's that what the Christianity was presented to me was a false uh, version or edition of Christianity, or you could say like what create Christian, or the Nietzschean approach, where Nietzsche talks about this in his book The Antichrist, where he say, well, either Jesus is the Antichrist because what Jesus is saying is not what Christianity is saying, or uh, all the Christians are antichrist, and there's only one true Christian, and that's Jesus Christ. Because there's some sort of so I overcame that despair, and I was like, okay, this is really what Christianity is, and so the despair was overcame. And if we can do that, if we can have faith in the truth, uh, we can overcome despair, and so the opposite of faith, or the belief in the truth, is sin, which is what? Belief in falsehood. Is like believing in the institutionalization of Christianity, where it's like, well, all gay people are going to go to hell. Uh, you know, um, you shouldn't take vaccines because God is in control, right? Muslims are evil. That kind of institutionalized Christianity. That's sin. That's the opposite of faith, right? So you just have to have um, faith in the truth. And that's what Kierkegaard is saying. So what I want to drive home is, as we live through these tough times, right? These tough times, coronavirus pandemic, political turmoil, economies going downhill, things are getting more expensive in general. It's becoming harder, middle class is becoming less, social economic middle class is becoming less prevalent. People are either getting more poor or they're getting more richer, and the people who are getting more richer are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and the people who are getting more poor are becoming bigger, bigger, bigger. There's no more middle class, right? So as we deal with all these issues, right? Race relations, social economic uh, injustice, racial injustice, that's the whole thing. Um, we have to, how do we deal with all this? Well, we got to seek the truth. What's really going on? What's really going on with race, with social economics, right? With this denial of science, with climate change, you know um, and this is how we develop hope. We grab onto the truth, and then with the truth, we like when we talk about running, and you have the baton. You run with that baton. You got to act. You're like, okay, I know the truth, and you can't hide it. You got to say it loud and proud. Of course, you're going to get despair because people are going to be giving you all types of crap. Like, no, you're crazy for saying that, but you know the truth, and others know the truth too. People like me, I'm gonna be with you. I'm gonna be like, hey, this person's on to something. Like when what's the person's name? Not on LibriVox audiobooks. It's like, yeah, the church, they do some abusive, exploitive thing. Yeah, I'm with you as a Christian. You can't deny that, right? So the truth will set you free. But so now that we know that, we got to say, let's not let the church define our belief system. Let's, do our research. Let's let truth define our belief system, right? Let's have faith in truth, right? So, as we continue with this coronavirus pandemic, which we already know how to deal with it, because, it's depressing. So much shit is happening. Uh, we know the truth. Wearing masks helps. Getting vaccinated helps. Avoiding large crowds if you can helps. Stick to the truth. I know there's a lot of people who don't want to, and that can lead you to despair. But there's a lot of other people who are like, no, 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 I'm here for the truth. You know, Same thing with racial injustice. Horrible things happening. George Floyd. Which is thanks to a lot of people talk shit about social media. We were talking bad about social media and its disconnect, but social media has actually done a lot of good. You can't deny that either, because now everybody has the cameras, and that kind of stuff, that George Floyd stuff, that happens all. It's sad to say. Again, we talk about despair, happens all the time. We tend to ignore it, which is sad, but it's true. But now everybody's filming. Everybody's got a camera in their phone and they're like live streaming it. That social media did that. Okay, so in a way, that's good. That was good, right? And it got people kind of waking up. Now, what's happening is the what is it? The momentum is kind of dying down, but we got to keep on pushing. That's why I still, to this day, will talk about racial issues on the channel and put a philosophical lens on it, uh, because we got to shine the light on truth. Black lives matter. That's true, right? Not to that people get caught up in like, well, what are you saying? You're saying Black lives matter more than other. Obviously, that's not what we're saying, right? We're saying we, the country I live in. black lives don't matter as much as other, white people who are considered white. So, and we see that, it's being filmed now. I know, a lot of people are saying, well, that's always been happening, but now we got visual evidence, right? So shine a light on that truth. And of course, that's another good example. Or that's another accurate example with the George Floyd. That brought a lot of despair to people. They saw that, they're like, wow, this is horrible. You know, but it's the truth, and now we can move forward with the truth and make some actual change. Same thing with this the insurrection that happened. Almost a little over a year now with the America. Oh yeah, we get political. Don't get it twisted. A lot of people say philosophy is not about politics. That's some bullshit. I mean, Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived, wrote an entire master work on philosophy. What was the title of it? Politics. That was the title. What's the Plato, Greek philosopher? What was his main the Republic? One of the required reading if you try and get a degree in philosophy, right? You required to read that. That is a work of politics, right? So politics is very important. That we should talk about that within a philosophical standpoint because the great philosophers did, thousands of years ago, right? Right. So don't get it twisted. Anyway, that's how we deal with the despair. That's how we deal with with the toughness that's going on in the world. We gotta shine a light on truth and believe in the truth. Okay, now I'm going back to the chat and check if there's any other questions here. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's some interesting stuff being said here. Lung Wan said, I like absurdist stuff, but I sometimes get frustrated with how much it can evade meaning. Sometimes it feels like it becomes a statement for the sake of statement, although I'm no expert. I guess it kind of depends on who's a philosopher. I don't feel Camus, who was kind of famous for his bringing out the absurd, right, and looking at it as a philosophical, analysis. uh, I don't think he had that issue. Does it evade meaning? No, he was more like, look, don't push your meaning onto me, right? Because the world inherently is meaningless. So I guess it's not so much evading. It's just like, look, though there is no inherent meaning in the world. So, but it's fine if you want to create your own meaning. I think that's the only way we're going to create. No, I'm speaking from the viewpoint of Camus. Camus was like, you should create your own meaning because there is no true inherent meaning in the world. But Camus was also about, hey, don't be trying to push your meaning onto me. I can create my meaning. You can create your meaning. That's cool. But don't be pushing your meaning onto me. And don't get upset when your meaning doesn't play out or doesn't like compute or like there's all these contradictions and paradoxes with your meaning because as Camus, as he said, uh, there is existence has no meaning in and of itself, right? So that was he was all about that. So I don't know if it's evading me, but maybe some other people, philosophers who are part of the absurdist school of thought, maybe they were into the evading. I'm not sure. I only reference Q in your. Yeah, no, it's true. Like you got these conspiracy theories, and it's like that's the opposite of faith. Is no, yeah, sin is opposite of faith, right? And what is faith? The pursuit of truth, right? Or the belief in truth to set you free, right? So nowadays you got people who they don't care about evidence, they don't care about research, they don't care, if you're confronted with facts, they're like, I don't care about your facts, I believe. So that's sin in terms of what Kierkegaard is talking about. That's sin. Uh oh. It's not that serious. We have we got this Russian person that's putting some weird stuff. We're going to spam that out. You're gonna get yeeted. Spam. Yeet. Now, yeet is a word that doesn't, I'm too old for yeet, but I find that word kind of funny. Eject. Okay, so Chris PR88. Unfortunately, some people remain in that childish faith. As a person that had many questions and doubts, I was meant to feel crazy for even having those questions. Thank God I came up with that spirit. Hey, there you go. Right. Yeah, that's part of the despair of pursuing truth brings you despair. Right, which is what Kierkegaard, the sickness unto is a sickness that you have to deal with until you die. Right. But there's ways to deal with it. Right. And then there is the overcoming, but then there's the next thing. uh, Focus on it. Have I ever considered a career in academia? No. uh, I don't think it pays enough. That I think teachers should be some of the highest paid people professions that we have. Right, I believe that. But teachers are some of the lowest paid jobs, at least in the United States of America. It's like my teachers when I was in high school. My teachers had to buy their own, school supplies from their own pocketbooks. It's like it's too much. But no, that's why I wouldn't be a teacher. Or I wouldn't be into the academia. Like, or yeah, even if like a college professor, I hear like even it's hard to be a college professor, right? You got to in today's world, you're not really paid that much. I heard like before, like in the '90s, I guess, or in the '80s, it was like a very nice, secure job, and you got paid. But nowadays, I hear from what people who are in academia, they tell me like, nah, you don't want to be no college professor. It's too hard. You don't get tenure and all this stuff. So, but I have deep admiration and respect for professors and teachers. That's true. Okay, and we got not myself, not me. Yes, or Aboriginals are not treated well. Yeah, no, racism is a global phenomenon. Don't get it twisted. Get it twisted. A lot of and a lot of countries are coming to terms with that. They're like, "Oh, that's an American problem. That's the United States or American problem." Don't get it wrong, but don't get that twisted either. It definitely is an American problem. I mean, we probably struggle with it the most, right? Right, our country, but it's not absent from other countries. That's for dang sure, right? And a lot of countries are now confronting the issue, and they're like, "We thought we were better than America." No, you're just the same shit. It's anywhere where there's colonialism, or a place that got colonized, you're going to deal with racism. Right? Let's see what he's saying. That's not so yeah, can't find a job. Yes, yes, but if someone speaks out about that, they seem right. It's true, and you got to think about that. So, not myself, not me says if someone speaks out about this, racial injustice, they are seen too emotional. Right? Why? Why are they seen too emotional? Are they actually too emotional, or are they breaking down, attacking the status quo? I think that's what's going on. Right? It's very obvious that the native Australians are the bottom. Same with it's just so everywhere. I remember, uh, even places like China where they got they ostracize that ethnic group that's primarily Muslim, right? They deal with racism. That country deals with race. It's like places you would think doesn't deal with race, they deal with racism. It's sad. This is why I love Marx. Okay, we got Toe Rohan. This is why I love Marx. He was basically cutting through the superstructural things to get to the material base. Ultimately, he was also a man of faith, but his faith was in humanity. And then you got a fist pump about Marx. Yes, yes. Marx was I've done many videos, so it's interesting now. There's a lot of interesting things that's going on with Marx. So I first of all, I've done some videos on Hegel, which Marx was hugely influenced by Hegel. He basically took the Hegelian ideal uh, idealist materialism, or no, idealist dialectic. The dialectic in the world of idealism, and he brought that into the material world. So he took the dialectics of Hegel. And he said, "Okay, let's bring this down to planet Earth." Right? And then he created, or he started the thing which is now called materialist dialectics. uh, right? If I'm even using the correct terminology, but that's he said, like, the relation people are who they are because of the relationship between themselves and their environment. It's that relation, that back and forth between the environment, the the social society they live in, their social relationship, their social economic status, their class relation. That struggle, or that relationship, is um, what makes them be. That's their being, right? Which kind of Hegelian, but more materialistic, or in the material. Right? So that's interesting. That's interesting, and he definitely has a point with that. Uh, Another thing, interesting thing I said. So one of my resolutions, not my New Year's resolution, but I did this, like, in 2020. I was so compelled by all the shit that was going on politically in the world. I was like, you know what? I gotta get off the internet. I gotta get off the internet. Of course, I'm still gonna do the internet stuff, but I gotta take what I'm saying onto the streets. I want to be an activist. And what people like Jane Goodall is talking about, like, look, you gotta get grassroots. You gotta get local. Join some local activist groups. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I started joining local activist groups. But man, local activist groups, there's a lot of drama and infighting, and just like any group, right? Or just like any societies or group dynamics, there's a lot of that. So, a long story short, so I tried to get into a lot of local activist groups, but it's just a lot of back and forth drama going on, to be completely honest with you. But eventually, I landed into the local group, a local Marxist Leninist group. They're called Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and they're the local chapter. I live here in Memphis, so it's well, I guess it's the Mid South, the Mid South region, uh, which is like a subsection of the South of the United States of America. Uh, f- the chapter of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is a Marxist Leninist group. I joined them because they were really the only ones that are out on the street consistently doing stuff, like, activist groups. I don't consider myself a Marxist Leninist person. Some of their ideas, I feel like there's some issues in terms of, but I like that they were out in the street doing stuff, like they were protesting, the colonize, the issue with Israel and Palestine, and how America's involved with that, and imperialism. And I'm like, yeah, we gotta stop doing that. And then they were out on the street with a lot of the social injustice that was going on. They were the ones holding the signs, and I'm like, yeah. Um, so that got me. I started researching a lot more about Marx, Karl Marx, and it's just interesting, right? Because Marxism, a lot of Marxism isn't specifically like, I guess it's just like any idea. It's like Christianity, or like any ideology, where it's like, what is Marxism? It depends on who you ask, or which group you ask. Well, there's a lot of different versions of Marxism, right? There's a lot of different versions of Marxism. One Marx version of Marxism is not the same as another version of Marxism. And throughout the years of like once Karl Marx put down his thoughts onto paper and people were decided to read them and incorporate those ideas, that those ideas have, although they're rooted in Marxist ideology, uh, they're tailored toward their specific conflicts. Currently, right now, I'm reading a biography of Mao Zedong, like the Chairman Mao, right? The the Chinese Revolution Mao, who was a who used Marxism to further his cause and his power. And it's just interesting how he took Marxism, right? And he, like, he did use a lot of Marxist ideas, but he definitely like tailored it toward the Chinese culture, right? It's a very cultural China. A it suits the Chinese culture well. The Maoism is like Marxism, um, associate, or like and I guess not in alignment, but tailored to fit within a Chinese cultural framework. Is what I'm saying. What I'm saying, like, it's just fascinating. Like, Marxism. A lot of people say, "Well, I'm a Marxist." Like, well, okay, what does that mean? It's like that can mean a lot of stuff. Right? One version of Marxism is not the same. Like a Maoist Marxist is very different from a Marxist Leninist, right? Or like some other. I mean, there's several different kinds of Marxism. Um, yeah, I find that quite fascinating. Okay, and then just looking at some more chats, seeing if there's any other. Yeah, I live in Canada, and so many people talk about America. Right, right. Canada, I know they're going through a whole like existential crisis of, you know, we thought we were a nation that race wasn't an issue, but no, like you're just, I mean, I'm in America, I'm an American, quote unquote. I'm from a citizen of the United States of America, so I just like we're the biggest culprits. Like, you'll never hear me say like, well, American pride, and we defeated racism, and Barack Obama was a black president, therefore racism. Like, no, like I'll be the first to tell you, America is the biggest culprit when it comes to racism. But yeah, I understand Canada is coming through. They're coming to terms with their racist, societal problems as well, right? Because they're a country of colonists too. Like, their treatment of native indigenous peoples was, you know, in many ways equal to what how America treated its native indigenous people, right? Which is horrible, right? So yeah, no, I'm hearing that. So Chris PR88 talks about. Have you ever heard of Mark Charles? No, but I will definitely notate this and look it up. Uns- Unsettling Tooth. He's Navajo and does a great job on social justice. Okay, I'll look it up. Mhm. Let's see. Real activist groups I know who directly. Yes, yes. Okay, so Quaker anarchists. Yeah, and so it's just fascinating to me. I'll just we're winding down to we're about to close the stream, but I'll just keep the conversation going until uh, we get through it all. Uh, but it's interesting. A lot of people, when I'm doing activist work, they're on it's like, where are people who care? And, you know, where are the people fighting for social injustice? And I feel so disheartened because then nobody's out in the street. Like, no, there's a lot of people who are into activism, but they're deeply in. in the internet. Like there's a lot of like anarchists, or like there's huge amounts of and there's so where I'm at, and even where I'm from, like I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. There's so many anarchist groups. And even here in the South, I moved here to Tennessee. There's there's anarchist groups here, but they're underground. They're not out on the streets. And the other issue is that they're infighting with each other. There's like several different anarchist groups, and they're all trying to debate on which version of anarchism is the right version. And they're so busy doing that, they're not actually like trying to push the benefits of anarchism on a societal level. It's I mean, it's kind of I laugh sometimes to deal. That's the way I make. That's my coping mechanism. But it's like it's sad because it's not like there aren't a lot of social activists. It's just we're a lot of it, and I'm starting to see it firsthand now. As I'm like, okay, I got to be an activist now. I got to be on the street. I got to start like, and I'm like, wow, it's a lot of these groups anarchists, and not to like bash on anarchism, like got some good ideas in that ideology, absolutely. But the infighting, and it's not just you. So I'll give you another example. Here in Memphis, Tennessee, you do you. So there's a Black Lives Matter movement, and there's the Black Lives Matter group, right? And here in Memphis, there was an infighting within the Black Lives Matter group. And by the way, I'm 100% down with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Yes, I'm all about that. But there was infighting within the group, and so they had to split into two groups within the city. So there's two Black Lives Matters groups, and none of them do anything. They talk a lot of shit on the internet, but you don't. You did see him out when the George Floyd thing, but everybody was out with the George Floyd thing. Like, where are you at now? Yeah, I just bring this up to say, like, yeah, it's just fascinating to me. Um, and a lot of people get disheartened. They're like, nobody cares. It's like, no, a lot of people care. It's just like I guess we're just too busy, like trying to define things. I guess I don't know. I don't know, but I just find that fascinating. But I'm still gonna be out there on the street. I'm not gonna let that discourage me. Okay. What do you work as? Are you asking me what my job is? So Sakit asks Patrick, what is my job? I'm in field of project management. It's very boring. Well, necessary work, but it's like I have an office job, a desk job where I would just work at I work for an airport company, or like an airline, and I work in their safety department, right? And so I'm a work in their project man. I do I manage projects that have to deal with aircraft safety, the safety of aircrafts flying, and so that I'm into like aircraft safety. Um, I'll say it's not the most interesting work, but hey, it pays the bills. It pays the bill, and it also allows me to do a lot of things that I like on the side. It's not bad work. It's nice. So it's quite nice work. Uh, but I don't get I don't. It doesn't fill my soul with you know what I mean. But it pays the bills. Okay, and then thanks for the reply. Plenty of people have ran with market base. Uh huh. Yeah. So To Rohan says, thanks for the reply. Plenty of people have ran with Marxism as a base and adopted a framework for their environment and expanded on it. That's basically Marxism in a nutshell. It's like, when somebody says they're Marxist, what they mean is they've taken the ideas or the concepts of Marx, and they've applied it, um, as a framework to suit their environment. You know, that's what Marxism is. You know, it is not. It definitely is not one thing. You know? And Marx, he says, was a white dude in Europe, so he had to blind us up. I'm sure he did. I haven't really found much in terms of like uh, blind. I'm trying to think. Did I have any? I haven't found any like social, economic, or class or race based blinders when I read Marx. I haven't read all his work, but I have read a lot. It's not like some people where I read and it's like, wow, you definitely like just don't like black people, or you like, wow, your idea of women are just horrible. Like Marx, some of great philosophers, and you'll read a chapter, it's like, ooh, okay, that's some blinders there. But Marx, I haven't found that yet, but I haven't read all his work. Uh, and then I read people who are Marxists, and I'm like, where did you get that from, Marx? And it's like this whole rigmarole of, well, this, and they're like, oh, that's how you came from that to Marx, but that was a whole like aerobatic, like gymnastic, some you know academic intellectual somersault that you had to do to make that connection between what you're saying and what Marx said. Yeah, so that's interesting. What is anarchistic? Oh, what is anarchism? What is anarchism? Well, you're asking the wrong. I'm not an anarchist. I will say I actually believe. I don't think that's ultimately the problem. The from one of my understanding is anarchism is like, look, the problem is the state. That is the problem. Like borders, the state, hierarchies, like state hierarchies. That is the ultimate problem. Once we get rid of that, uh, then like a lot, then we can like start solving problems. I don't know if that's like the fundamental problem. I honestly think like I mean, there's many things wrong with the conception of a state, sure. But not all of it is bad. But I'm sure anarchists be like, "What? The state is horrible, or hierarchies are bad." And I'm like, "Well, some hierarchy. You need leaders." And they'll be like, "Well, when we say leaders, we don't mean hierarchy. There's a difference between leadership and hierarchies." But yes, but sometimes you do need to allocate a level of power to somebody who's a leader. Like you can't get, some people just are very bad at like leading people. And so those people, you can't give them like certain powers. So you can't allow them because they'll just run amok with it. Right? Some people need to have certain powers to be effective leaders. Right? I don't know. So I don't know if that's so. All that's to say, like I'm not an anarchist, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask what is anarchistic. Oh, you're a breast cancer research project manager. That's great. That's great. Well, that's cool. My mama is a breast cancer survivor, so yeah, cancer has played a part in my life. So that's good to hear. Have you seen Don't Look Up? No, no, I heard it's good. I heard it's a pretty good movie, and it's got some philosophical overtones. And what are your thoughts? Sorry if you covered it already. No, I didn't cover it. Um, man, I don't. It's really difficult for me to watch a movie nowadays. It takes a lot of convincing because it's like, do I really want to dedicate that much time? I like movies though, but a lot of these modern movies is tough. But I hear that's a really good movie. So uh, I may watch it. And let's see, Clay, of what's left of Marx as a black communist woman. Okay, Claudia Jones. Okay, so last call. Okay, so feel free to ask any more questions. Somebody asked Chris PR8, have you seen the movie Tree of Life? Also, I hear that's a good film. Uh, I remember I was talking to somebody I know. They're like, over the past 10 years, that's like one of the top films they've ever seen. Tree of Life. uh, but I haven't seen it. Haven't seen it. I hear it's like it's two things are going on, like the creation of the universe and like a small family, and they compare the life of the small family with the development of the cosmos. So it's got this grand thing going on. So I don't know. And isn't Brad Pitt in that movie? He's like the dad or something. uh, but I haven't seen it. Yep, last call for any questions because we're about to end the live stream. But thank you for coming, and yep, congratulations to uh, Lung Wan, if that's how you pronounce your name. Yeah, just PM me your mailing address, and I'll send that book to you. Not sure how. I don't know if you can private message people anymore on YouTube, but you can hit me up on the social medias or email me. I think my email's on one of the YouTube tabs. Just let me know, and I'll send you the book. Congrats. And Jo or Ju, is that French? I don't know. Plateau. Sure. Every time I see EAU, I think French, like plateau. So Jo, if I said your name wrong, please correct me. Hey, man, on a work break, but what do you think of Carl Jung? Read much of his. I have not read Jung, but that's definitely something I want to get into. Some Jung. I heard, when I was bashing, the Peterson's most popular work, Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. Didn't really like that book, and I made a video, and then a lot of people were saying like, "Well, you don't really can't really understand it because Peterson bases a lot of his ideas on Jung." And you got to read Jung first. I'm like, I don't know about all that, but I do know he's quite a popular thinker, and I definitely will read him. Contemporary of or him and Freud were side by side together developing the what is it, psychotherapy, or the further developing psychology. So yeah, eventually I will start making videos, but it won't be for a while on Carl Jung. But I like the artwork in the back too. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's my wife. That's my wife's picture. I like that. I think that's my favorite, the astronaut lady. I This is a local artist. Uh, I felt like this is very feminist, so I bought this from a local artist, and that is also my wife's art. She's got good taste. Mhm. Uh, Jung's work on Nietzsche is very interesting. Okay, maybe I could show you before we go. Got all types of work up there. Boom. Got Golden Girls. Rest in peace, Betty White. I like the person in the lingerie. That's funny. Yeah, some great pieces. What do you think of the brothers Karamazov? Uh, yeah, so I made a video on that, and I love that book. That's probably one of my favorites, just books in general. It's a great analysis of Christianity. Great analysis. If you know, it's a great book if you're like, I don't get Christianity. I really just don't understand it. You know, or why people, what really is the positives of Christian besides just the superficial, like, oh, these people are just getting believing in Christianity just for because they don't know what else to believe, or they're just trying to confront the horrors, or the stuff they can't explain. Is just but you know the Brothers Karamazov takes a very deep dive, and like, oh no, it's a lot more complicated than that. And if you're really seriously practicing Christianity, uh, here are what serious Christians are dealing, confronting these issues. And this is really what Christianity is focused on addressing. So it gives that deep analysis of like the real focuses of Christianity. Uh, so yeah, I love Brothers Karamazov. Okay, so if there's no more questions, wow, I'll show you a little bit more. Just using my laptop. Oh no, got some. Oh man, can I do it? I don't think I can. It's too. Oh no, it's our instruments. Got some instruments on the wall. Got a Working on another banjo tune. Got a mandolin. That's my black guitar, and that's my wife's trumpet. And she also got a ukulele, and that's some ocarinas hanging next to that, a heater, and then a vinyl. Just to give you a little bonus. 8 years doing this. Get to know the Black Panther. Banjo. Yeah, check out my I put up a little banjo cover on my channel. Check it. Just put like I did like uh, the Kermit the Frog song. I love the banjo. I like the sound of it. I bought a banjo and paused after getting to hard parts. Yeah, some of those banjo players, they're just like super fast, like it's like, damn, that's too much. I can't get it. I can't get into all that. I'm not really interested in that super fast way of playing. I'm more into just the slow melodic. I like melody more than just like super speed. But super speed is cool too. Uh, how long does it take you to read a philosophy book on average? Well, it depends on the size. Like something like this, which is kind of small, it's not going to take me that long. Maybe like a week or two, you know. But something as big as like the phenomenology, that's going to take several months. So it can range from like a week to like 4 months, 3 4 months. It really does depend on the length of the book and like the complexity. We're up out trampled by turtles. I'll YouTube that and see if I like it. I'm into like yeah, I'm into melodic songs, or songs that have like a nice melody. Uh, Songs that are like just super fast, just for being super fast. I'm not really into. I mean, they're very impressive, but I I don't feel compelled to learn how to play those. Do you have any plans to read uh, Zizek? I think I said this. Uh, do I have plan? Yeah, I've actually read. I haven't read all of it. What was it called? Objects of Desire? No, that's not what it is. I read the Objects one. I read like part of it. Objects. What does it mean? Sublime. What it was? See. I know so much about it. I don't even know the time. The sublime object of ideology. I read like I would say a third of that, and it's just to understand like what's all this hype about this guy. And I read it. I'm like, okay, it's actually kind of interesting. He's not like a hack like some of these contemporary philosophy. Like he has some serious ideas. Eventually, I will read, but I don't find anything that he's saying like super enlightening. It is deep. Like I would say of the contemporary philosophers, he's a serious one. Uh, but I guess in my opinion, he's not saying anything new, which is not necessarily what I'm looking for. You can say old things, but kind of like in new ways. But I don't think he's even doing. He's just very. He does very smart, critical analysis on society. So he does very smart critical theory. I think that's why I haven't been compelled to like do a video on him because I'm like, well, until I find like kind of like more saying something new or something that's as old that's put a new light on it, then I'll read his stuff or I'll make a video about his stuff. But he's pretty cool. Sublime object of desire. I think maybe he did one on that one too. But I read one third of Sublime Object of Ideology, and I was like, okay, you've impressed me. It's pretty cool. His references on John LeCon, which is similar to Butler. Right, right. I think he's worked with Butler. And they wrote a few texts together, or in this in a work together. Yeah, but yeah, they are different. Butler and Deleuze, and do I plan on reading Deleuze and Guattari? I'm not sure if I said that right. Eventually, but eventually, it's so many people to read, so little time. Mhm. But I would love eventually, I would like to read them. I still want to continue reading some Hegel. You know, I definitely want to read some like science of logic, philosophy of the right, and the encyclopedia one. I definitely want to get those, knock those out, and not you don't really knock out Hegel, right? You struggle with Hegel. So want to make videos about those. So it's gonna be a while. And then I want to return back to some Kant and some of the classics before I get into more of the more future. And but I also want to like it was brought up before, but somebody was like being and nothingness. Yeah, I definitely want to make a video about that for sure. It's that I have it on the shelf. It's been staring at me for so long. I'm like, okay, once I get some Hegel in me, I'm gonna take I'm gonna make a video about that being in nothingness from Sartre because that sounds like something up my alley. That sounds like something up my. Do you read one book at a time? Not really. Uh, yeah, that which is kind of slowed my reading down, which is fine. That's why nowadays I've been coming out with videos like slower, like you've been seeing like month gaps. But I try and make that up by making long ass videos. Right? All right, so I'm like, well, I haven't been making videos as frequently, but I do give them the hour plus long videos. So I give you a lot of stuff there. Uh, but I do read multiple books at a time, right? Just for the fun of it. Yes, he has spoken to Butler and is friends with her. Right, right. I've heard them reference each other. Butler and Zizek. Yeah, Marcus was great. Unfortunately, he killed himself 5 years ago. But he's definitely okay. Mark Fisher. I will check that person out. Okay, okay. This is X reading. Being in nothingness by Sartre would be great. I know it would be. I wonder if somebody has made a video about him. Probably by now. But I remember before I started this channel, I was on YouTube mad looking for like somebody has got to made a video on um this book. I couldn't find. I did find like a few. I think I found like two or three, but they weren't about the book. They were just about specific concepts in the book, and they were done like poorly. And when I say poorly, I don't mean like high. The production was bad. I don't really care about that, but just the the quality, just the talking was like it was just wasn't there. I was like, yeah, you're not really. Yeah, it was too much jargon, and I was like, oh, you're just trying to sound smart, really, but you're not. You know? So I would love to make a video about that. Yeah, Plato. So Chris Pra8 said, "I heard you recommend Plato's books as a beginner. Yeah, those the dialogues of Plato. Those are great for beginners. Is there any other book you can recommend? Yes, I strongly recommend the Tao Te Ching. You should read that. The Tao Te Ching. It'll give you kind of like an alternative. Uh, a lot of people don't like. Well, not a lot of people. Some people don't like the term Eastern philosophy, but I think it's appropriate. Specifically, if you're talking about the social economic times we live in, where if you want to get a degree in philosophy, you're really getting a degree in Western philosophy, like Plato, the Greeks, and then the medieval philosophers, and then continental philosophers and so forth. But are you really learning about Asian philosophers and Muslim philosophers and uh, African philosophers? No. Right. So not to clump them together, but just to acknowledge, like, there's philosophy that the mainstream can't philosophy institution the institution of philosophy does not really involve itself with. you know i- so I think, because the Tao Te Ching is great for beginners, it's very easy to understand, it's short, but it's foundational. Right, it's foundational. And a lot of philosophy, even Western philosophy, was inspired heavily by the Tao Te Ching. Right, but certainly, like, a lot of Eastern philosophy, in terms of like um, Confucianism, Buddhism, even Jainism, like all these uh, East philosophies from the East, heavily influenced. Um, so I would say if you read the Tao Te Ching, you're going to get a very good foundation. As a beginner, and then you'll see all these references, and then you'll be able to make uh, intelligent connections. That's why, when I read Jordan Peterson's work, and he makes all these references to the Tao Te Ching, or just Eastern philosophy in general. I'm like, wow, you got this all messed up, man. Like, where you get this from? Like, and it wasn't hard, because all you have to do is read it, like, and just puts a little bit of effort and thought into it. And a beginner could be like, wow, you got some basic things wrong about this. So what I'm saying is, if you read that book, the Tao Te Ching, and then you start reading other philosophies, other philosophical works, you can start making intelligent connections already from the beginning. Even a lot of Western work, especially a lot of these contemporary Western stuff that make references to, like, continental philosophy, and they don't even realize that a lot of what they're saying is influenced from Eastern philosophies. uh, that a lot of that was brought. Well, a lot of that was brought from many things, but a lot of that was brought from the transcendentalists that kind of incorporate, like, uh, Emerson and Thoreau. They brought a lot of that Eastern tradition into philosophy, uh, and then you got a lot of these, what they call postmodernists, that make all these references. They don't even realize they're making references to, like, stuff like the Tao Te Ching. But so I would recommend that book. And then Capitalist Realism is great. Okay. There's a recommendation. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay. Well, If there are no more questions, I will bid you all farewell. And feel free if something else pops up, you can always comment on one of my videos. I got the YouTube app on my phone, so it's just like text message just pops up. uh, so I'm always on the internet, um, one way or another. Uh, but thanks for stand, tuning in and joining me, and congratulations to the winner. I already forgot the person's name. But I've said it enough. The person knows, so congrats, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Bye bye, y'all.